All right, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about classes and IDs. So let's jump into Sublime Text 3 and let's right click on Learn Basic HTML5. I'm going to create a new folder and we're going to call this 04 dot classes and IDs. Hit enter and I'm going to right click, select new file, hit Control S, type in index.html, and I'm going to type in HTML and hit tab and go inside the body, and I'll show you exactly what a class and an ID is. So we're going to use the div tag that we learned in the previous video in the basic HTML tags. So we used the div tag before, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to type out left bracket and then div, and we're going to type in class. We're going to call this container, and then I'm going to close this class with the div tag. And then I'm going to make another div, and we're going to call this left bracket div, and then we're going to give it an ID of logo. Okay. So I'm going to right click, open in the browser, and we're going to inspect this. And you can see right there we have the class of container and an ID of logo. Now, the idea of using a class or an ID is with a class, you can use it on multiple elements. So if I give this div the class of container, and then I create another tag like an h1, I can give that a class of container. I can also give it to an h3 or whatever other element that I want. I can give it a class of container. Now, with the ID, you can only put it on one element. So if you have a common use of an ID would be in the navigation, you want to separate the logo image from the rest of the site. So for example, if we had an image right here and I give it an ID of logo, and then, in fact, here, let me back up for a second. I'm going to do this again. Let's do IMG, and I'm going to, there we go. I'll give it a hashtag right now, and then I'll give it an ID of logo. When I create another image, let's say I add another image in there, and I do the same thing, but I don't give it an ID. If I open this in the browser and I right click and I inspect the element, if I were to give this logo, the image ID logo, I could give that a custom property in CSS. If I use this one, I could set a default property for image to whatever, height and width, for example, that I want. And any image tag that I have on the site besides this image with ID would have this same property. So let me close this for a second and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I went to here and I did image source and then I give it a hashtag and I went up here, I'm going to show you a new tag. I'm going to tab in here and I'm going to do left bracket style, right bracket left, and then backslash. And if I went in here and I did image and I did height 100 pixels, width 50, let's do 500 pixels. Background black. Okay, I'm going to right click, open in the browser. And you can see wherever I have the image, I have a background of black. Even on the image that has the ID of logo, because we're using image. And so any element with image in it grabs these properties. Okay, but if I do this, if I do image hashtag logo and I give it a height of 50 pixels, a width of 100 pixels, and a background of blue, and I Control S and right click and open that in the browser, then it changes the property. So now you see the difference. The class has this. And actually, it's not a class, it's an element. However, I could make it a class. And so that's what we're going to do. I'll give it a class of test. And then we'll do that here, where I give this a class of test. Okay, and then I go here and I do image dot test. So when I right click and open the browser, and let's change this to pink so it's a little more obvious, right? Open in the browser. Now, if I right click and inspect, this is the real fun part. The image with the ID of logo has a height of 50 pixels, a width of 100 pixels, and a background of blue. The class, the image with the class of test, which is on 2 images, has a height of 100 pixels, a width of 500 pixels, and a background of pink. So I gave the property of a height of 100 pixels, a width of 500 pixels, and a background of pink to the image with the class of test. So any image, any element with the class of test will have these properties over here, right here. So if I put test on any other element, and then I put it in the CSS here, then it's going to give it that property. So let me close this and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I went to the H1 and I gave it a class of test, and I went to the H3 and gave it a class of test, and then I came up here, and I do have to add it because it's just not going to automatically do it. If I do h1.test and then h3.test, now when I go in, it's going to do that for all 3. Now it's going to color out my text because it's just covering it up. However, if I come in here and I give it a color of black, and I right click and open in the browser, it's still not there. But what it's doing is it's giving it the properties that I wanted it to have for the image. It's putting it on the H1s. Okay. Now, if I deleted these, which I'm going to do, and I go in here and I'll delete the color black, and I'll delete these divs right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a div with a class of test. And then I'm going to close that. I'm going to right click and open in the browser. And you can see there it is. But it's not grabbing the div. And do you know why it's not grabbing the div? Because the div is not being called. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these right here. And I'm going to do div.test. I'm going to right click, open in the browser. And now you see this is the div right here. This is the image, and that's the image. And how we know is it's a broken image here and a broken image there because we don't have the correct link. So that's the difference between a class and ID. The class, you can add it to multiple elements like we did here. We added it to a div, we added it to an image. The ID, you can add to one element. So in this case, we added it to an image and we gave it a custom property. So that way it differentiates itself from the rest of the site. And so the idea behind that, and we're going to use this in the final project, the idea behind that is if you're in the navigation and you want to have specific properties for the logo in the navigation, you would give it an ID, and then you would give it a custom property with a position and a width and a height that you want so that it's unique to that one element. So that's classes and IDs. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.